Good morning. Thank you all for coming today. On behalf of the Westchester County LGBTQ Advisory Board, I want to thank the County Executive, the Board of Legislators, and the Loft LGBT Community Center for giving us the space to recognize the important contributions of the transgender, gender nonconforming, non-binary community today on Transgender Day of Visibility. However, it is also important that we discuss the work that still needs to be done. The transgender community is under attack by legislatures across the U.S., targeting a very vulnerable group, trans youth. Additionally, trans people are over 4 times more likely than non-trans people to experience violent crime. 2020 saw a record number of homicides of trans people reported in the U.S., with 44, and many more likely not reported. The Advisory Board, in partnership with the County Executive, is committed to continue to work and advocate for transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary communities in light of these staggering statistics and discrimination and hate that these communities continue to face. Today, we are also asking county employees to include their pronouns in their email signatures. We thank the County Executive for promoting pronoun use in email signatures, as it is a clear indicator that Westchester County is a welcoming space for any individual to express their gender identity. We can normalize an understanding and accepting the gender identity of others by including pronouns in email signatures. We hope that all county employees and many others will include their pronouns in email signatures going forward. As a reminder, the Westchester County Advisory Board, LGBTQ Advisory Board, is here to support Westchester County's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, non-binary, and gender non-conforming communities. Today, the board honors trans folks wherever they are on their journey of visibility and authenticity, and we also call for an end to the epidemic of anti-trans hatred and violence. So without further ado, I will introduce the Westchester County County Executive, George Latimer.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm very honored to share the podium with Judy and Mia, who will follow me. I'm George Latimer, he, him, his, Westchester County Executive. And everyone deserves the right to have their identity and their personhood respected in the workplace. And that is simply what this is today, to show proper respect to individuals, to the workforce, the people who work in Westchester County, so that when they show up to work, they can have a reasonable expectation of safety and respect. And what we're doing today, we're doing obviously in coordination with the Loft and the county's LGBTQ Advisory Board, is encouraging county employees and other local businesses around Westchester to help us create that community of acceptance, and to do that by using their personal pronouns. Now, we had Chris, as chair of the LGBTQ Advisory Board, send out a note to those in county government. It's certainly optional. There's no mandatory nature to it. But Westchester County is joining a long list of other entities that have done the exact same thing. Corporations that are bedrocks here in Westchester County: IBM, Amazon, Goldman Sachs, Apple, TD Bank, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, major law firms in this area and in New York City. We have those kinds of options that are opened up by MasterCard and by Facebook and other communication companies. So what we're doing in Westchester County is very consistent with what's happening in the business community and the world around us. It's very important for us to understand that we're reaching a point in this society where we have to make sure we do exactly what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, and that is judge people by the content of their character. And he said not by race, but if he were alive today, not by their gender or gender identity, not by their religious faith or traditions, not by their age, relative youth, relative age, and anything in between, or by any of the other demographics that we have. We've seen an increase in hatred acts toward those who are transgendered, those in general, the LGBT community, in the same way that we've seen acts of hatred, most recently against the Asian American community, against the Latinx community, and the African American community. And all of those things have one thing in common, which is a willingness of some people to treat other people in this society not as equals, not as relatives, not as siblings, but rather as the other. We don't believe that. We believe there's a mosaic in Westchester County. We believe this county, not just the government of this county, but the structures and the people and the businesses of this county, we're large enough and warm enough and welcoming enough to make sure that everybody has their personhood and their identity appreciated and respected for who they are, what they do, and the content of their character. So let me turn this back over to Chris so he can introduce the other speakers. I look forward for us moving this forward. We know that we have in our Human Rights Commission, we have in our Office for Women, our Mental Health Department, soon Board of Legislators and other bodies of county government are adopting this individually, if not collectively, and we look forward, Chris, to a good response to your communications to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the county executive, and I also want to thank the county executive staff who have been very supportive in this initiative and been behind the scenes making sure that the communications go out and that the communications are connected to what the advisory board wants to tell the county. So next up, we have the executive director of the LGBTQ Community Center, the Loft, Judy Troiello.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Judy Troiello, and I use the pronoun she, her, hers. And I'm the executive director of the Loft LGBTQ Plus Community Center. It's days like this that makes me very proud to live in Westchester. We work with organizations across the country, and we see what some of those LGBT centers have to contend with. We have such an affirming county executive, so thank you, George. It's important to recognize this day, and I'm going to keep it short because I'm now going to introduce to you a member of the Loft team who's going to speak about the importance of pronouns and Trans Day of Visibility. Thank you. Mia Edwards.
Thank you, Judy. And thank you, County Executive Latimer, for being here today and talk about the importance of Trans Day of Visibility and the usage of pronouns. Using pronouns is a powerful way of making everyone feel seen, heard, and respected. Thank you for being an ally. Being trans myself, this day is obviously meaningful and powerful one for me. So why would a trans person choose to be visible? I choose to be visible so I can be true to myself. In a sea of negative attention, I stand tall as other trans folks to show other trans folks they are not alone. And on this day, it's great to have an excuse to celebrate trans folk, regardless of how visible they are. This is what we do here at the Loft. As a case manager of Proud as Me, a program for empowering the trans, gender nonconforming, and non-binary community, we make sure everyone feels visible and heard, especially when it comes to taking care of their physical and mental well-being. Today, on Trans Day of Visibility, the Loft has announced 10 scholarship awardees for the first ever cycle of Transmission. Transmission is a scholarship program that is designed to help folks with the transition process. We know how important it is for everyone to be seen for who they truly are. I encourage you to visit our website to meet each awardee and learn ways to support this crucially needed program. So what else can you do to be an ally? Call us by a correct name. Use our correct pronouns, and speak out against transphobia. And we talk about this day, know that it's about one thing, dignity. It's about giving trans folks the dignity to be seen, the dignity to be heard, and their dignity to be respected. In the great power of our collective humanity, trans folks have a story to tell. And by giving us that dignity to share it, we in turn add richness and wealth to what it means to be human. This is what makes a community stronger. their collective dignity. This is why the Trans Day of Visibility matters. This is why it's so important. Dignity. To all our trans family, we hear you, we see you, you matter. Dignity. Thank you. I'd like to also invite everyone to an event honoring trans women hosted by the White Plains Public Library this evening from 7 to 8:30. Details can be found on the Loft's website at www.loftgaycenter.org. And I thank you.
Thank you so much for those powerful words. Thank you to Judy, the Loft, and of course to the County Executive, as well as to the Board of Legislators. To recognize the important day of Transgender Day of Visibility, I implore you and ask for you all to include your pronouns in your email signatures going forward from this day. And feel free, as always, to reach out to the LGBTQ Advisory Board for any questions or concerns or thoughts, because we're here to listen. Thank you very much.